What's the worst injury you've ever caused to someone by accident? I used to have one of the basketball hoops with the base you fill with water. Me and my brother used to empty it so we could have one of you grab the rim and the other jump on the base so we would go flying up. A neighbor visited and we tried it on her son a few times, but then got the idea to have us both do it while he grabbed the rim. He basically flipped in the air and landed flat on our concrete driveway. He fractured his skull and was unconscious for about 3-4 minutes. He couldn't swim or do anything to physical that whole summer. I think I might have been in the 3rd or 4th grade. Oh my god, that's freaking terrible. Backed an off-road style golf cart at 30 miles per hour into a tree, while my now once removed stepbrother was sitting on the back seats, that face outward behind the cart. He went flying off the back and rolled into another tree, breaking his arm and pulling a rather extreme amount of skin off of his arm. Bro gets up and just says dang. I hated when this happens. Then with a cringe face, just casually walks back to the cart. I didn't know what to say. I thought he was dead on impact. Your brother sounds like a badass. When I was young, my dad bought me a chemistry set. I never really cared for it, until the day all the neighborhood kids got into a water fight. It was suspected that the local weirdo kid was peeing in the balloons and throwing them as us. My prepubescent brain came up with the idea to put that chemistry set to good use. Now, I will say in my defense, I remember carefully reading each label to look for anything scary, severe burns may result, etc., and not using those, but never gave a thought to how the rest of the chemicals, when thrown into one pot, would react to each other. When the weirdo was isolated on an elevator deck, I surprised him with my chemical bomb water balloons. The effect wasn't immediate, but I do remember the boy crying and his face was bright red on one side, and an ambulance. Honestly, I have no idea how badly he was injured, but I don't remember anyone ever hanging out with me again. TLDR. Played with a chemistry set to make water balloons. Kid got burned. I ended up being the weird kid. Hey man, he went biological and you went chemical. I was fighting over a knife with my cousin in the kitchen when I was around 5 years old. I don't really remember why we were fighting over it, or how we got the knife in our hands, but the one thing I vividly remember is the color red all over my hands, on the floor, on my clothes, and this screeching sound of pain and agony coming from my cousin. Turns out, I had cut 2 of my cousin's fingers off by accident. Fighting over a knife. That is a recipe for disaster. I tried to use my little sister's body as a bike ramp when we were 7. I thought it would work fairly well, but all I did was break her nose. Newlywed couple, taking a shower together. I bend over to pick up the soap. I couldn't see. I had water running in my face, and my husband thrusts up against my face. I tried biting him playfully on the leg. He was not thrusting his leg at me. He ended up with a huge bruise on the top of his member. I felt really bad and apologized a lot, not that it helped much. Took a few days before he could use it again. If you mistook that for a leg, you're a very lucky woman. I was 14 at this girl's house. She was around 13. Her father was really into golf, so we were out in his yard hitting plastic golf balls. I swung and hit one and on the backswing I nailed her little brother. I turned around in horror at the large gash on his forehead. I thought her father was going to kill me. They took him to the hospital and now he is forced to bear a Harry Potter scar. I felt so crappy. To be honest, I think it was his fault for being right behind you. While in a teenage hormone-fueled argument with my dad, I slammed my door in his face. I also happened to slam the door on his big toe. His toe went under the door. His toenail, however, did not. Tackled someone out of bounds in a game of 7s and he landed on a freshly cut bush which stabbed him through the abdomen. One of 4 ambulances that visited that game that day. I'm not sure what 7s is, but I'm pretty sure after 2 or 3 ambulances I'd probably stop. Threw a shot puts in high school pay. Hit a girl in the arm and she had to wear a sling. Let me add that this girl was very popular and athletic and I was none of those things, obviously. So the metal straps that are on some heavy packages from time to time at construction sites. Yeah, my buddy was carrying some garbage in his hands with one of those in it and dragging on the floor behind him. And then it was stepped on and pretty much lacerated the crap out of his palm. That was my bad. I never seriously injured him, but all throughout middle school, mostly 6th grade, but the trend kept up. I had this one friend who, no matter where he was, managed to put his face right where my elbow was traveling when I was turning around. This happened at least once a week in 6th grade. Then I decided to have a bit more awareness of my limbs. We're still friends. He's accidentally punched me twice in the face in our 3 years of high school, so it all works out. Accidentally. I went snow tubing a couple years ago in the mountains, and at the bottom of the slope you have to drag your tube across the other tracks to get back in line. When I was going down the hill, I saw a kid just standing in my track next to his tube with his back to me. I was going way too fast to stop, so I ended up crashing into him, sending him flying. I felt so bad. I messed up that kid real bad. His mother kept yelling at him, too, for being an idiot standing in someone else's track. Poor kid. The Taliban use common phrases used by shepherds on unencrypted radios as code words. We dropped some 105mm artillery shells on some poor farmers because they said all the wrong things on the wrong night. I think about this often. To be fair, they were using radios to herd sheep at night. Rough sex. My wife eventually developed a cyst behind her left leg. Had agonizing pain for weeks. She eventually need to get the cyst surgically removed. Weeks of recovery and strength training in that leg. I broke a kid's jaw with one of those old Timmy cell phones. I was just swinging my bag around. I swear. He had to get it wired shut and everything. His mom was so mad. My friends and I had a few years where we would just slap each other in the balls. For pretty much no reason at all. It was my birthday, we were drinking. About to go out. A friend, let's call him Bob, decided to slap me. He mainly got the meat. This is good. So I slapped him back. Apparently I got a little bit of ball. Bob then tried to knee me. Haha, missed. I tried to knee him. Connected. Obviously these weren't as hard as possible, but anyway. Bob bends over clutching his crotch. 30 seconds later shrugs it off and we go out for some food. The next day, Bob's balls hurt. Nothing major though. The day after, holy crap. Bob's left testicle had swollen up to the size of a small grapefruit. According to him and his missus, the scrotum was completely smooth. Zero wrinkles. The right testicle had gone and hidden somewhere in his throat. So Bob went to the hospital in jogging bottoms. Apparently you could quite clearly see a bulge. He got seen, lied down on the table, removed his trousers. The doctor looked at his smooth scrotum for 30 seconds, mouth open. He then left the room, came back with another 2 doctors. They then looked at it for another 30 seconds. One left and came back with another 2 doctors. For those of you not keeping count, there are not 5 doctors searing a giant ball sack. The doctors decide that they should do an ultrasound on it to get a better understanding of what's going on. Bob is a high-spirited guy and apparently evening having a massive ball didn't put him down. He came out with this. So, is it a boy or a girl? The doctors did not laugh. They just looked at him in disgust. The doctors prescribe him antibiotics and send him on his way. Next day he goes into work. He is in quite a bit of pain. He is a teacher but can use his computer on a projector. After his first class he gets up for a stretch. Goes to sit back down, kinda forgetting that he has this humongous ball. And yes, sits on it. After this he decides that it's probably best he has some time off work. Couple of weeks later everything is back to normal. He's off the antibiotics and his ball is at normal size. He decides that it's probably time he checks that all the plumbing still works. So he gets his laptop and some tissue and proceeds. In his words, this was what come out. An oyster with barbecue sauce. A doctor friend told us that what it probably was. The aftermath of the infection being caught off. Not using it for 3 weeks. And blood. TL. DR. Need friend and balls. Cantaloupe melon. Wasn't a girl or a boy. Sat on it. Oysters and barbecue sauce. I regret one thing from this. Doing it. He regrets, and everyone else in the world, that he didn't take a photo with it. And we don't sew this anymore. The way you wrote this is effing hilarious. Favorite story here. 330 pounds and playing football with some friends. In the middle of playing though I tackled someone head on right into their chest area. Well, unfortunately someone got him from behind at his legs, causing him to hit the ground very quickly, making all the force from my tackle go right into neck shoulder area. I got up after hearing him scream in pain only to find that his collarbone was about to poke out of his skin. Someone rushed him to the hospital and we continued playing. 20 or 30 minutes later I tackled someone else from their side, getting them right above their knee. Got up. He was also in pain. He was holding his knee and said he couldn't make it straight because it hurt too much. He was also sent to the hospital. He ended up dislocating his knee and also broke his femoral shaft. I haven't played football since. I was drunk and meant to throw a dart past my friend's face to scare him. I learned an important lesson that day. My friend can't duck for crap. When I was a little kid I was at a birthday party with a penator. I was blindfolded like usual and the stick was a broomstick. When I cocked back to swing it I guess I nailed some kid in an eyebrow and knocked him flat out on his back. He was bleeding a lot and started crying. I felt terrible but not terrible enough to not grab my candy. Oh man. Penators are terrible. Those things are just injuries waiting to happen. Was playing basketball and ran in for a layup. My friend set himself and bent down as I was jumping. My knee went square into his face. I shattered his nose, split his lip and cracked the socket of his eye. It was very ugly. I also dislocated my knee but got the least of it. Do you remember those detachable swinging monkey bars that used to be on backyard swing sets? They were the ones in the U shape. Anyway, when I was like 5 or 6 at an after school daycare, I detached it and started swinging it around on this hill. There was another girl about my age who was coming towards me while pushing another, smaller child in a wagon, so she was face down. I essentially gave her an uppercut to the eye with a metal bar. Blood started gushing out everywhere, and the babysitter came over and started screaming, "Find her eye! Find her eye!" Luckily she didn't lose her eye, but that was one of the more traumatic moments of my childhood. Oh, I wish I got to this one earlier. Hope this doesn't get buried. In 7th grade we were drilling holes in wood during shop class because that's what you do in shop class. I was partnered up with this new Indian kid who didn't speak English very well. He offered to hold the wood while I drilled it on the drill press. At the time, this sounded like a fun team building activity, only he had his hand squeezing underneath the wood as I was drilling. I drilled through the wood and right into his ring finger, splattering blood everywhere, with the tip of his finger dangling off. He calmly apologized and said he had to go to the nurse. He went to the hospital and didn't return the next day, or again. Somewhere out there is a now 24-year-old Indian man with a large chunk of his ring finger missing, and this is all my fault. Before you say it, I checked and yes, he was fine. His mother pulled him from public school after this incident. I don't know where he went or where he is now. In a small forest near our neighborhood, me and a childhood friend used to hang out by a stream with a bunch of rocks around it. We would playfully toss rocks at each other because I guess that's what boys do. Anyways, he was far off down the stream and out of sight. I was bored and was like, "Dude, you should see how far you can throw a rock." Found the smoothest, most flat rock I could find and whipped it downstream as hard as I could. Seeing it fly through the trees out of sight, I felt pretty proud of myself. Until I heard a thud followed by a scream. Your question came from a boy. Turns out I nailed my buddy in the eye. Didn't lose the eye, but the cut on his nose produced a large amount of blood that really freaked out a pair of 8-year-olds. TLDR. Don't throw rocks into the bush if your friend is in said bush. I have a way of injuring my cousin. At a family party, I hit him in the neck with a wood baseball bat because he was right behind me and he got a giant splinter. Later that day, I hit a crochet ball at him and broke his ankle. Crochet are those hooky looking knitting thingies. Not a person, but I ran over my neighbor's cat when I had my driving permit. That's Reddit suicide, but I swear it was an accident. I'm sorry guys. My dad actually told me to speed up on my first driving lesson because there was bunnies in the road. My sister also managed to drive into a tree that is about 2 inches wide while on her permit. Was playing basketball with my HS best friend. Went to juke him and he went one way and I another. His knee went into my hip and he tore his ACL, MCL, and a couple smaller groups. Ruined his senior year of wrestling, band, and baseball. Not really my fault, but it was on my basketball court during our one-on-one game. I was cutting my husband's hair and somehow dropped the clippers. And perfect arc and they nailed him straight in the balls. I cry easily if I hurt someone as it is, but at the time I was pregnant and hormonal on top of it. He yelped, and as soon as I saw his hand covered in blood I lost it and ran into the bathroom bawling and locked myself in. The thing is that it hasn't even occurred to me that I had left him blind and bleeding in the kitchen without knowing how bad he was actually hurt. He had no idea where his glasses were, so he was stumbling around the kitchen, one hand on his balls, the other groping around hoping to find his glasses. To add to the chaos, as soon as I started crying and took off, our 4-year-old got scared and started screaming and crying too. It all happened so fast and I felt horrible. I couldn't look at him without crying for a week. During swim practice we were doing butterfly stroke. About 10 people were in each lane. I smacked a girl in the nose while she was coming from the opposite direction. Blood was shed. Same thing happened to me, except she hit me. I'm prone to excessive nosebleed, so when I started everybody was screaming. I acted like it didn't hurt whatsoever. I was voted the team juggernaut. I was tobogganing when I was roughly 11 and I ran over my friend's arm, breaking it. She was on the sled in front of me, fell off and I ran over her. I didn't get in trouble or anything and she didn't blame me, which is good. 10 years ago when I first started taekwondo, I kicked out a kid's 2 front teeth. We were in sparring class and he wasn't wearing a mouth guard. I launched a tornado kick and got him right in the mouth. My foot got infected and I was in the hospital for a week. Had surgery, and then had a PICC line to my heart for the rest of the month. The kid got one tooth capped and the other glued back in. Dang. I think he actually won that fight. When I was a kid playing laser tag, everyone would run around even though they told us not to. I, of course, decided running was a good idea and ran around a barrel at full speed only to hit my best friend's friend in the face with my gun. I split his face above his lip wide open and he started bleeding everywhere. He had to be removed from the game to go to the ER while I had my gun taken from me and told to stand with my hand on the barrel as punishment for the rest of the birthday party. When he came in the next day with his stitches, he yelled at me for not hitting him in a certain spot on his face, cause he wanted a cooler scar. I've had a couple of accidents happen to me, but I've never hurt anyone. When I was 14 and my brother was 3, I was giving him a bath. He was playing with some chopsticks, banging them on my head and whatnot, then one slipped right into my ear canal. At first I just remember it hurt a little bit. I took the chopstick out, and the blood started gushing, pouring out. I screamed for my mom. I had to have surgery where they took my ear off and replaced it in order to fix the eardrum. Terrible accident. Most recently, my husband got me pregnant. We weren't planning on having kids at the time, but we did, and it hurt. Not horrendous but quite funny the way it happened. Caused a friend to now only have 30% hearing in one ear and 50% in the other due to a devastating blow from the squeakiest of inflatable hammers to the heads. Whoops. 7th grade, awkward teenager, be walking down the stairs next to a popular girl, trip and try to grab railing, miss railing and push girl downstairs. She broke her wrist. Man, middle school was a blast. God dang you. That reminded me of the time I fell down 2 flights of stairs and my butt literally hit every single one because some douche dropped paper. I now can't stop laughing. When I was about 6 years old, my mom bought me and my sister a virtual reality helmet thing as a Christmas present. I was so excited to try it out, so she puts the helmet on me and starts to velcro up the little hand attachment so that it could tell when I was moving my hands. Turned it on right after she finished up and is still kneeling in front of me. And oh my god, there are ninjas flying at my face, so my natural reaction is to kick some ninja butt. And I punch my mother directly in her eye as hard as I can. On Christmas morning, the injury itself wasn't bad, but the guilt was unbelievable. I felt so bad. Awesome. My favorite. Nearly peed. Friend and I were trying to annoy one another by sneaking up on each other and flicking the other's ear. I thought he was far behind me, so I tried to warn him that I knew he was sneaking by kicking my leg backwards. Turned out he was much closer and as a result, can't have kids. Dude, pretty sure you owe him a kid now, or at least a testicle transplant. Not me, but my uncle wanted to see how close he could swing a baseball bat to my mom's head without hitting her. She woke up in the hospital shortly after. I was chopping some firewood with a standard hammer chisel. My friend was standing a little too close behind me. I took a pretty heavy backswing and the back end of the hammer, the part used to remove nails, struck him right in the eye. To be exact, the whole metal part went into the top part of his eyeball, and when I attempted the downswing, his eyeball came out flying. The disgusting part was, we picked up his eyeball like 3 feet nearby and it had like roots attached to the back. Looked kind of like a large sperm cell. Called 911. My friend was a champ the whole time, didn't even cry, and they came and got him and he had emergency surgery. Well, the eyeball was reattached but he lost vision in his right eye. It's been 15 years and we are still friends to this date. Almost gave someone a concussion in a kitchen. I was younger, working in a cafeteria that I hated. I worked in one building and was carrying a load of pans and dishes into the main building across the street. I came to the swinging door at the side of the kitchen area and didn't see anyone through the glass. Since my hands were full, I decided that it would be a good idea to kick the door open. Well, turns out the cook was leaned over, looking for something at the bottom of the shelf. He wasn't happy and was off work for a couple of days. Boyfriend and I had an argument. He stormed out. I lived on the 3rd floor. High ceilings and steep stairs. After a moment I ran after him. Didn't realize he was still between the 2nd and 3rd flight. Wham, sent him flying down the stairs, arm through the window. Felt awful sitting with him in the hospital while he got stitches. Frick, I still feel bad about that, and we broke up like 5 years ago. When I was 6, my 8-year-old brother was swinging a golf club by the pool. I ran by to so I could go into the pool and he hit me in his backswing. My top lip fell off and I needed emergency plastic surgery. Not me, but inflicted upon me. My grandmother, love you mama, was walking in front of me on the stairs when I was 4 years old, tripped near the top, toppled backwards and took me out. We careened down the stairs as a single jumbled mess until the bottom, at which point she unfortunately broke my leg. My grandmother was so riddled with guilt that she actually could not fathom that she had broken her grandson's leg. To this day, 18 years later, nobody can bring it up at family gatherings since she gets too upset. Healed fine though. My cousin was working on a science project and was using yarn and a needle for part of it. I was fricking around with the needle and I put it in the carpet. My sister jumped onto it and it went into her heel. With about an inch of yarn, my mom pulled it out like a boss. I didn't tell anyone. I caused it for a couple years and then one day I told my sister and mom and they didn't care. A few weeks ago I walked into the dorm room neighboring mine. I knew a few of the guys there and they had invited us to chill. I walk in and this girl is like, I know you. In my head I'm already preparing for the usual, you're the guy who dances like crazy at parties. You sounded awesome in that show, etc. I've grown accustomed to. You hit me on the head and I saw your dong, is what she actually said. The dong thing was just because of a naked party we'd both gone to a few weeks back. But apparently I hit her head pretty hard while flailing around on the dance floor a year ago or some crap. We're cool now. She realizes it was unintentional. The way she phrased that though threw me for a loop. Was on a school trip and we were skimming stones at a rocky beach. I picked up an almost perfectly triangular stone that was perfect for throwing. I was towards the back end of the beach and with a grimace, I launched the stone from my hand at a bountiful speed. Much to my dismay, another kid in the year decided to walk in front of shoreline as I let loose the triangular missile. Crack. It hit him in the side of the head and he fell to the floor. The teachers had to look after him for a while and he was out cold for about 10 minutes. Luckily they understood it was an accident so I didn't get told off too much. At first I thought my arm-powered rocket had killed him. Then I got an ice cream. TLDR. Skimming stones. Another kid got stuck between a rock and a wet place. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.